You guys all lined up? Got all your white done, everything you need?
We can do the video first, and then at the end, and if it's still shot, and leave it up there.
Okay, that's fine. All right, if y'all are ready, we'll get started. First off, I want to thank y'all for being here today and allowing us the opportunity to finally be able to release some information that I know a lot of people have questions and concerns over, and so our hope is today that we can put some of those concerns and issues to rest. What we're going to be talking about today is an incident that occurred back on November 26th of 2020. Our communications center received a call at approximately 9:05 that evening in reference to a domestic disturbance in the 5500 block of County Road 1260. The female complainant advised our communications operator that he had left, that the subject had left the residence with some of his belongings, including a gun. Deputies were notified of this fact. Approximately 20 minutes after, a deputy located a male subject matching the description of the caller on County Road 7000, just east of County Road 1300. He then made contact with the individual. On that, we're going to show you the first segment of video, which is the officer's body camera footage from there. Now, before this gets started, just for some context, and one of the things I want to make very clear is you're going to get a little over 2 minutes of video, which is the officer and the subject interacting. We understand that obviously, there comes a point in time for the news stories that that these points have to be edited. We want to be very, very clear of what's going on here, the number of attempts the officer is making to try to garner voluntary compliance from the subject in order to obtain a pat search, already being aware of the fact that there's a possibility that the individual is armed with a gun. So on that note, public information officer will be releasing that video as well as the dash cam video and a still from the dash cam video, which we'll show you here when we wrap up here in a minute. She'll put it up on the screen. Obviously, we know at that point where the video stops is when the officer fires the shots. Again, you can also see the officer made multiple attempts to try to direct the individual to place his hands on the vehicle in order to obtain the pat search, in an effort to try to remove any potential weapons, any risks to him or any other individuals at that point, which the subject continually refused right up until the end. I want to talk just briefly about the condition of the subject. As we know from the final autopsy report, toxicology final findings were that he had a .03 blood alcohol level. He also had crystal methamphetamine in his system, fentanyl, ketamine, and 2 different types of THC derivatives. You know, the main points I want to kind of strike with today is we're talking about this is kind of twofold. One is what I prepped you all for, which is the failure to comply with the officer's instructions. Unfortunately, this is something we are seeing more and more each and every day, and this trend is leading to a point where these situations end up becoming far worse because the situation escalates because we cannot get compliance with the lawful orders of a peace officer. And in this particular case, given where this was at, given the nature of why the officer had stopped the individual, he was completely well within the law to conduct a pat search of that individual. And I can't help but encourage the public, as we have a lot of individuals that are out there suggesting in social media and everything else, to resist, to fight, to not comply with officers' instructions, and all we end up with, again, as we say, is an escalation that in cases just like the one you've seen here they ended up here. And we just can't have that. You know, follow those instructions. If you feel like there was a problem, if you feel like the officer acted inappropriately, you have a due process, you have a complaint capability within the individual law enforcement agency to deal with that. So we would encourage you to do that, but during the point that officer has you stopped, indicates to you that you're lawfully detained, you need to follow the officer's instructions. The second thing is, of course, is given the timing in which we're finally releasing this video out. And I want to be, again, very, very clear on this, that there is a process that occurs anytime you have an incident, particularly an incident involving deadly force, where there's going to be a detailed, complex investigation that's going to follow after the incident has taken place. And we've gotten, again, to a point where we're seeing a lot of things that could potentially end up being evidentiary in nature being released out. And I want to be very, very clear that whenever there is a question about that, whenever there is an investigation that is currently pending, and that we do have materials, we will hold off on those. The other important fact to remember here is that these matters, particularly, again, like a situation as we have here, is going to be investigated by an outside agency, and that's going to be turned over to them and is going to become their investigation. And at that point, myself or any other agency head or executive is not going to interfere with those investigations until they are completed, until they have gone through the full process for presentation to the district attorney's office, and ultimately any decisions that may be made by the district attorney's office or a grand jury if there was any questions about the incident itself. Now that those processes have been fully completed and we know the outcomes of those, brings us to today where we're at and why I'm releasing this video. And I want to add just one final note, and I will try to answer any questions that I can. While this video was exceedingly tragic, the actions of the deputy that night are a textbook example of how we train our officers and what we expect of them when they're faced with this type of situation. And again, I don't think that can be underscored or understated enough. So again, I want to thank you guys for coming. Is there any questions I can answer for y'all?
You just mentioned the deputy's training. I know you probably can't release the name of the deputy, but can you talk about their experience on the force, their years, and that sort of thing?
I don't have his actual years of service. I can tell you that his experience is extensive. He has served in a couple of different jurisdictions. He also had a short stint with the state of Texas. He is currently a SWAT operator on our tactical unit now. So his level of training is really at the top end of the spectrum on that.
And he was placed on paid leave at the time. When is he back on the force?
Absolutely.
At what point did that take place?
At this point, we would, obviously when these things happen, there's a tremendous impact on the individual when a situation like this occurs, and we want to make sure that they are certainly ready and fit for duty, and we want to make sure they have all the care they need and the ability to make sure they can work through, what all has taken place, which was a process that he went through and was subsequently went back to work as soon as he was confident he was ready to do it.
They're not placed on the force after the investigation or anything like that? After the investigation of the shooting is complete?
Are you just talking pure timing? In other words, holding them until the investigation is finished? That's situational. And in this particular case, and given what we had seen by that evening, that wasn't necessarily or was not a concern at all for us at that point, given everything that had led up to the situation itself. Had there been any questions or anything along those lines, then the scenario you talk about is certainly a possibility.
And do you guys do your own sort of investigation internally along with the Rangers?
Well, anytime a firearm is discharged, we have protocols in place for that, and that's all certainly reviewed. But in this particular case, the Rangers would handle just about everything exclusively because you did have a death involved.
Just to be clear, did the suspect end up having a gun?
Yes, he did. You'll see it here in just a second in the still shot when it comes up.
And at what point was the Ranger investigation complete?
Up until I understand, and I can confirm this time with you, but I believe it was the week before last was when I think everything was produced over to the district attorney's office for their review. But I'll confirm that for you just to be sure.
With situations like this, how important is it that that body cam and vehicle camera footage to aid you guys?
It's you see it. It tells a lot of the story there. And I guess, again, it's part of the reason why I'm going through the detailed steps I'm going through in the way I'm releasing it. Because, again, the concern is as soon as that video ends up having, any degree of length to it, that, we want the full picture to be seen. We don't want to see it where it ends up getting ultimately parsed or anything along those lines. And so, again, it tells us the story of what took place there. It tells us exactly what both parties were doing, and again, it's been a valuable tool.
And this may be you may allow the Texas Rangers to do this since it was their investigation, but do you have any contact with next of kin once that investigation is complete?
No, they handled all of that. Anything else, guys?
Can you say what the weapon was? I know you have it shown the photograph.
I don't know the particular make and model, but it was, by the pictures you can tell it's a nickel-plated revolver. Dim those lights for him. I don't know how bright that is. I can't see it. Guys, again, thank you all for coming in early on a Monday morning and letting us present this material out. If you have any other follow-up or further questions, I think each and every one of y'all know how to get a hold of me directly, and I'll be more than happy to try to answer them. Pat will take care of any of the additional information, some of those specifics you asked for. She'll get you, make sure you've got that information, and get you guys all your copies of the actual files. Okay? All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.